Hello everyone, today I have a white pill and some tips for men who are interested in marrying, who just did not ever find that person, and maybe you are very discouraged by just feminism in general and how it's seemed to have infected everybody and every woman. And while I do say that I do believe that basically all women have been affected by feminism in some way or another, that is very different than all women being these total feminists that are going to be horrible wives. Okay, so there's obviously a spectrum, and so there is a bell curve of how affected women have been from feminism, right? And there's some place there that is livable, and it would still be of benefit to you to enjoy a woman as a wife, even if she sometimes says something or believes something or votes for something that you're like, what? But you have to just kind of discern it. And I know that there's a lot of people on the internet saying, well, you can never know and this and that. I'm actually going to make probably my last video will be basically kind of talking about how to not get black-pilled about relationships. Because a lot of that has to do with mindset and what you're focusing on and what you're believing to be true and how much you allow yourself to basically become sexist in its true term, where you totally judge somebody and assume somebody is totally something because they have a vagina. And some of this could be relevant the other way. I don't know if a whole lot of feminist women are watching me, but a lot of this really could be flipped back to if you are a woman and you think all the good men are gone, there's nobody good out there. This could be relevant to you as well. So the first thing that I want to talk about is mindset. So there's this concept of what you focus on grows. So if you are focusing on all the bad things that women have done and things like that, that's going to grow like in your mind. That is somewhat true if you're talking about, if you're focusing on like making money, you tend to make more money. But in this case, I don't think you actually make women become more feminist. Maybe you do if you start treating them badly, then they kind of retaliate by being defensive and then look to see how they could hurt you because you hurt them. Whatever, that could happen, I suppose. But either way, what you are looking for is what you will find. So if you are scouring the internet to find all the feminist fails and compilation videos, and you're hearing every story about it, and you're watching all these people go on and on and on about how single moms have ruined the nation and all these women are just hookup culture people, like, that's not true. And I'm not saying, I really don't know what the percentage of women who have been involved in hookup culture. I don't know what percentage of women have slept with more than, say, 5 people and whatever. But this narrative that that's how all women are is just not accurate. And when you are in different circles, you will find it to be highly different. So if you live in a very liberal area and you're hanging out with actresses, you're going to have a different result than if you're hanging out in a more rural town at a small conservative church, right? Like, it's going to be vastly different. So let's remember, again, the bell curve of women, like, people are very different from traditional to modern. And you may not even want like super traditional, I don't know, and so just remember that, and do not be fooled into thinking, into just focusing on what you don't want. You focus on what you do want, and then say, okay, these people do exist somewhere, like out of the whole nation. Surely there could be one woman who fits this. And maybe I can find some community and get closer to this stuff. But I'll get into more how. But first, you have to start with that belief. Because if you don't believe that it's there, or you don't believe that you would be able to detect whether that person actually is good or not, then it's kind of like, why bother? Why try? Like, just give up. But if you don't want to be black-pilled and you want to be white-pilled and you want to move on and say, you know what, I do care about having a family, I do want to find a wife, you're going to have to not listen to people who are dragging you down and to people whose attitudes are becoming so toxic that a healthy, happy female would not be attracted to them. Only somebody who kind of has like some messed up like daddy issues, whatever, kind of situation, maybe that would be attracted, so like some of those incel things where it's like, oh, we went on Tinder and then had this horrible guy, and all these women were after him. Were those wife material women? Like, no, those were hookup culture, kind of messed up relationally women who, and so if you put out negative vibes, that's who you'll attract. So anyway, there's a lot of mindset that goes with this stuff. Something else to remember is just have some awareness and humility of just humanity, knowing that we live in a fallen world and that all people, male and female, fall short of the glory of God. All people, male and female, sin. So all people do have the potential for evil. And this is hugely important because this is something that a lot of times MGTOW guys will talk about as well. She seemed fine and then she turned into something bad, which first off, I do wonder if perhaps they're not taking personal responsibility for their role in the way their wife became cold towards them. But nevertheless, let's say they did just randomly, kind of fall off. That is always a risk that you have, because we live in a fallen world and Satan is constantly trying to steal, kill, and destroy. Satan is constantly walking around us looking to devour us. Satan is constantly attacking our minds and trying to make us ineffective. And that is true for both Christians, and I do believe he messes with non-Christians as well. And so we all have that potential. Every guy has the potential to cheat on his wife. And he has to guard against that. That's why boundaries matter. All women have the potential to become total emotional basket cases. Like all of these things happen. And to some extent, all of this is going to happen. But the hope, though, is that you have some kind of boundaries, some kind of standards, so that when you fall short, when you sin, both the man and the woman, that it's not to the dramatic extent that would warrant a divorce, such as cheating, or such as physical abuse or something like that. And when you're thinking about this and realizing that everybody has this potential for evil, so it's not just like, oh, now modern women with feminism have the potential to be bad. No, all women throughout all history have, and so have men. And in my next video, I'm going to give more examples of things that men have done, because while in general society, people are very high on women, in the political right, it's the opposite. So, and men like to talk all day about how women are coming to them with all these expectations. And then I hear a whole lot of hate towards women and not a whole lot of acknowledgement of perhaps maybe I had something to do with why she became so angry with me. But what you want to do is really strive to not go into that sexist category of all women, and because she's a woman, you can see the general trends and say, these are the kind of things, like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. These things are true. We are different. If you haven't found somebody, I think it is kind of a valuable lesson to try to say, evaluate really what has gone on. If I'm a little bit older, why did I miss the boat? And it doesn't need to be this heavy self-judgment, but I personally would suggest figuring out kind of a truthful answer that is positive and shows why you're different now. I saw some girl's channel where she was talking about it, and she said she would just say oh, I'm in between relationships. And I'm I don't know, personally, I think that's a very bad choice of description of why you're single. That's not going to be helpful or attract somebody who's looking for a committed relationship. So I would suggest not saying something that is false or misleading in that way. Second main category is that self-growth. So that's one of the reasons why the humility has a lot to do with it, where you're kind of saying, what is going on with me? And we're all continually growing, and we are not ever where we want to be, right? This side of heaven, we will have faults. There will be issues. But it's better to try to improve, right? And so the first thing being your mind. Your mindset is the start of everything. So be really careful of the inputs. YouTube can be hugely negative, and really not helpful for the goal of finding a good woman and wife. So you can start giving off, even subconsciously, this kind of like negative vibe. And you don't want to be doing that because, again, that would probably only attract the wrong kind of woman, not somebody who is coming from a healthy place. Like developing the habit of daily reading of like personal development books like Darren Hardy and John Maxwell and Zig Ziglar and whoever, find your people, or maybe it's listening to podcasts or something. You have to kind of find your jam, like if you're a reader, if you're a listener, whatever. But really, I would encourage that for sure, to be the one who would attract this person. So if you're looking for this like conservative, really Christian, like devout woman, then you have to be that devout man. And so she would be looking for fruits, and she'd be seeing it as a warning sign if it doesn't seem like you're spending regular time with God in the Word, or if it seems like church isn't really a priority to you. And I do recognize the challenge of you don't want to feminize church, you don't want that, but then also like I don't know where everybody who's watching this lives, but and I am kind of in the Bible Belt, so I will say that. So we have a ton of churches, and so there's a wide variety. And I mean, I would go so far as to say if you are in an extremely like liberal area and you're going, I seriously cannot find anywhere, and none of these people have the values that I want, then maybe move. I mean, that sounds really dramatic, but the thing is that it's like, it's your life, and so you have to kind of decide what your priorities are, and perhaps it could serve you better to live somewhere that actually reflects your values, and then you could find community and a church home and all of that, and friends that just are a lot more aligned with you. And in your daily living, that would just benefit anybody, whether they actually find a spouse or not. It could be advantageous to move, which sounds like maybe dramatic, but that's just massive action. That's the idea of massive action, which I'll get to. Something else with the self-growth is to develop something to really stand out. And this one, I don't know that I feel super strong about this, but I think it makes sense. If you're kind of at a place where like, dang it, I think I kind of missed the boat a bit, and now I'm kind of competing with guys like who are younger than me, and maybe like I'm wanting a younger girl because like I want to have kids, then it may be helpful to stand out in something. A more obvious one would be with working out. And when I say work out, not just like showing up to the gym, like it can be so many people to kind of show up to the gym and they don't really transform and they don't really go to another level. Like watch Athlean X whatever channel on YouTube. I don't even know if that's the right channel, but anyway, there's a lot of good resources to really figure out how to do it. Get Body Beast, do whatever, and then especially if you're older, but you're looking really fit and you have a lot of energy, you're going to have a totally different, you're going to come off totally different than if, you're kind of like a little sluggish and you're just kind of whatever. It may seem like your age is older than even it is. You know what I mean? So if you're trying to attract a younger person, you kind of have to figure out what can I do to sort of be more youthful, and energy and being in shape is definitely one of those. And then sometimes, maybe if somebody's like, I don't know, like that's a little bit old for me, but they're like, I don't know, I can see it, because that's something with women. I think this is just kind of my opinion. I think a lot of times women feel good about something if they can just see it in their mind, like they can imagine you two together. Then it works out. Or, playing a guitar or whatever. And then something else, another like resource would be watching the channel Charisma on Demand, which I think is a super interesting channel, and I think the guy does a really good job on it. And so he talks about that, and I believe that he talks about things in a way that he's not telling people to be these like alpha, super aggressive guys that I think sometimes in the political right, men tell each other that is what women want. And I do believe some women want that, but I also question if the more marriage material women really are looking for these super like aggressive guys. I think it's more like people like Jordan Peterson or John Maxwell. It is like that dynamic of like being a leader and being strong, but being kind and also being soft, and having that blend. and not just this like, I'm, this hardcore gym guy with this huge neck. Okay, just figure out what you want in yourself, and try to grow that with whatever fits with you, but try to stand out in some way, because there is some element of competition. The last kind of category is action. So I already mentioned potentially even moving if necessary, and if it's a serious enough goal to find somebody. But also the first thing really should be fervent prayer, and I'll go there and I'll say fasting. I know Christianity, not that many people really do truly fast, but I believe it is very powerful and it's very biblical. And that helps kind of get into that more like fervent prayer where it's much more intentional, much more serious, not just like when I'm down, I kind of say, oh God, come on, please. But like a real season of more intense strategic prayer over this, and trusting in God in that way. And I say that as a part of the action because that is something to do, not just like passively, but proactively praying. But then also, of course, taking action. I mentioned diligently finding a church home because you want to be the person that she would be attracted to. You don't want to give off any red flags. Network. And again, that will also help if you're the kind of person that would attract that person. People will think of you more often if they do happen to end up finding a single person. This happened with the pastor of my church. He went out with this one girl, and she was like, you know what? Not sure we are a good match, but you are pretty much weird for Jesus. And I know a girl who is weird like for Jesus too. And so you guys will go well together. And then they did, and they got married. So, that's another reason why kind of just standing out in your faith and standing out in different ways can really make a big difference. But networking, not being afraid of saying like, hey, I am looking for somebody. And yeah, that can take a lot of courage. But there is also a difference between saying, I need somebody versus I want this and I'm going after it. You can come have discernment that you don't have to be needy when you admit that you want something. There is a difference. And then also just getting out of the house. Not to a bar, but just, whatever, like hobbies and things, especially if there's opportunities where it's more typical to actually mingle, like volunteering at something, and then you want to kind of push yourself to like hang out more and try to meet people. So it's kind of hard, like if you're not particularly outgoing. And I mean, honestly, I am outgoing and I am extroverted, but that kind of stuff is tricky. But that's why maybe watching Charisma on Demand or something like that could be helpful, so that when you are out of the house, you figure out like, how can I approach people? But phrase it in questions of how can I, and how can I move past these obstacles, instead of focusing on, oh, but I can't because this. You know what I mean? So have that solution-oriented mindset, and that will really help, and that'll help you find the answers to some challenges that could come up when trying to find somebody. I just want to point out some potential types of women that maybe would fit in the category of women who did not end up finding a husband when they were in their young 20s. So this could be women who were just kind of overlooked. I mean, my husband doesn't really believe that this could happen too much, in that a lot of times if you join a singles group, surely the guys would be willing to, would be aware that girl's probably looking for somebody. But either way, I think it is possible that somebody could just be kind of overlooked. Maybe they never really did anything particularly special with their makeup, never got too into that, just didn't identify as that super pretty person, but she's not ugly or whatever, and probably could be pretty. I really do believe that with women, that most can be, pretty. But a lot of times people don't identify as that, and therefore don't put any effort in that area, especially in the Christian world. I mean, there are verses that kind of could steer somebody away from that. So anyway, it could be somebody like that. Maybe they didn't really kind of get on that train until they're a little bit older, or maybe they had a transformation, like a weight loss transformation, or maybe they were just dealing with stuff, there was a bunch of bad stuff, like their parent died or whatever, who knows, they just kind of took them out for several years while other people were getting hitched. It could be a failed long-term relationship. And again, you want to be careful and discern, and this is another reason to be prayerful, is this a red flag, or was this something that was preventable? And because sometimes, I've known people who've been in that situation where the guy just basically didn't love them. Or, well, okay, I know one person who was in that situation, long-term relationship. She like moved somewhere for him. And yeah, and then he ended up breaking up with her, and she's like, it's fine. And she married her husband, and so that worked out. But like, that made her older when she did meet her husband, because she was planning on being with this guy, and then he decided, you know what, no, like, we're not, meant to be. And like, this stuff happens. And again, with the mindset, to remember that contrary to what people may act like on the internet, this is not a situation of all the good men line up, all the good women line up. Oh, there's not enough women for all the men, and now all the people who don't have somebody are out. It's not quite that like cut and dry. I mean, people are always getting gaining a year every year, and there's like new generations coming up, and people are moving, and then chances are you're not going to connect with somebody. If you're, in Michigan, you're not going to find somebody in Alaska, so there's there's a lot of things at play besides just this straight lineup. It is a matter of getting in front of the right people. So remember that. So that's pretty much all of my thoughts, which ended up being kind of a lot of thoughts about how to sort of stay in a more white-pilled mindset about marriage and relationships. Next week, I'm going to talk more about kind of protecting yourself from being black-pilled, because I think there's a lot of fallacies out there about relationships that really, when you dig down deeper into it, it really comes to mindset of a victim mentality. And honestly, a lot of the things that feminists try to encourage women to slip into, as far as victim mentality and entitlement, well, men do the same thing, and you can focus all day on the sins of the opposite sex, but you have to ask yourself if that's helpful or not. But anyway, I'll get more into that next week, or I may post it this week, but hopefully this will help you for today. All right, have a good day. Bye.